What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. Patch 5.17 was a lot smaller than the last patch, but there were still some balance changes that are definitely going to cause some indirect changes that aren't so obvious when first looking at the patch notes. Most of the changes were minor and will only have very slight effects since this patch was pretty small, and so this time we'll cover the indirect buffs and the indirect nerfs that took place, of which I was able to come up with a few. Let's get started. Starting with the buffs, the first group of champions that received an indirect buff is actually the engage tank top laners other than Maokai. It's very subtle and bruisers are certainly still king, but the nerfs to Maokai gives somewhat of a boost to tanks in a pretty cool way. On one hand, Maokai before the nerfs ever since his rework has been the clear frontrunner go-to tank in the top lane for a team comp, and he's always had the problem of significantly outclassing other tanks as a pick. There was almost never really a good enough reason to play any other tank when you could just play Maokai because he would do the job of an engaged tank better in almost every way due to his targeted snare. But with a reasonable sized nerf to the cooldown of his ultimate, tanks are going to be outclassed by him a bit less now, and we are likely to see a few new tanks gain a tiny bit of popularity, especially those that are engage focused, who share a very similar playstyle to Maokai, since now Maokai won't necessarily be the go-to option for a top lane engaged tank anymore. In addition, with the Fizz nerf, top lane tanks in general get a little bit of a boost since AD top bruiser Fizz was a strong counter to tank champions. He was a good counter to tanks due to his strong sustained mixed damage while also being able to avoid the low damage combos of tanks with his playful trickster, completely shutting out any chance they had of killing him. With the significant nerfs, bruiser Fizz is almost dead now in some way in favor of AP Fizz, and so by having one of their best counters nerfed, tanks get a little bit of a boost from that as well, in addition to the Maokai nerf. And the last buff I could come up with is a buff to engage support champions. The Janna nerfs didn't seem like that much on paper when I first read the notes, but they are actually looking to be fairly significant, meaning Janna is reasonably weaker on this patch. Janna counters the hell out of any engage-based supports entirely, often by being able to stop them dead during the middle of their gap closer in the case of someone like Leona. And after a decent nerf that Janna has received, she's going to be played a bit less, meaning that engaged supports have one of, if not the biggest counter to them, fall out of the meta just a tiny bit, causing them to see that bad matchup of facing Janna a bit less overall in their games. And as for the nerfs, there was only one decent one I could come up with. Janna is a fantastic tool for poke comps, and the high range of her tornado shut down engages at an awesome distance, and so now poke champions get a little bit of a nerf as a result to the Janna changes. I'm talking champions like Xerath and Ziggs, these kind of high range siege-based poke mages. Janna is the key element in a poke comp by providing the disengage you need to stop your team getting jumped on, and so nerfs to her affect poke comps quite heavily since she plays such a pivotal role in them by preventing the main weakness of a poke comp, which is of course getting engaged on. Janna counters engages so well that she pretty much always gets picked in poke comps, and with her disengage tools being reduced, poke comps suffer as a result. So what do you think got an indirect buff or nerf in this patch? For some reason I have a strong feeling that I missed at least one, but it was a small patch and minor changes result in even smaller indirect changes. Either way, leave a comment, and thanks for watching.
Well, far along the way.